We crunched the numbers and we worked out that in London alone, last year, women earned £70 billion less than men.
So this is a short, semi-serious sequel of sorts to my recent video about Sophie Walker's recent rather curious claim that the vast majority of homeless people in the United Kingdom are women. If you haven't seen it, I think it's worth a look, because not only does it help to demystify and ultimately debunk what I do think is a dangerously disingenuous and dismissive claim, but I also consider the correlation between homelessness and relationship breakdowns, especially violent relationships. Because self-identifying champions of victims of domestic violence like Sophie do tend to take a rather unhealthy and unhelpful oppositional stance to the notion of extending support to male victims of violence. So much so, in fact, that while they're more than happy to count them in when they're discussing statistics about domestic violence, they have a consistent practice of cutting them loose when it comes to calling on the state to ring-fence funds for services to victims paid for by the taxpayer. Which is why I thought it was ironic that the extremely well remunerated CEO of the council with one of the highest incidences of homelessness in the UK, as well as by far the highest incidence of domestic violence in the whole of London, a city with 9 million souls but not one single refuge bed available to male victims of domestic violence, just so happens to be Sophie Walker's husband. And in this video, I wanted to reflect on the fact that for the convenience of her simplistic and very political calculation of a very hypothetical London pay gap, Sophie is the sort of person who would lump every single homeless man on the streets of London on the same side of the statistical fence as most of the city's fat cats, based solely on an accident of birth and biology. Now, I know that anyone watching will understand that there is a massive difference between Sophie's dramatic depiction of a London pay gap and the actual concept of actual equal pay in return for equal work. But for the uninitiated, the latter is a legal right that has been enshrined in law for some significant time since last century, and the former is a misleading thought experiment that ignores inconvenient truths about consumer spending, public spending, taxation, personal choices, shared wealth, love, affection, and long hours away from loved ones when proposing that these three men have more privilege than people like her. It is, of course, an easily debunked conspiracy theory, and one that would be laughed out of any court concerned with the entirely different matter of equal pay for equal work. It did inspire a little thought experiment of my own concerning how we determine whether one job is valued more than another, an experiment which led me to the sort of question about gender equality that people like Sophie Walker never do seem to get around to asking. And my question is this: why is it that according to the Barking and Dagenham Post, the CEO of their council of determined privileged gender is getting paid more to run a borough for less than 200,000 people than the First Minister of Northern Ireland, the First Minister of Scotland, the Home Secretary, even the Prime Minister of the entire United Kingdom? Surely it can't be just because he's bloke.